think, remember so many things about times that we had that were good in the past. Towards the end of his life, which is I think where I'm going to start, it had become very painful to watch him going through what he was going through, and I found it distressing all the time, thinking to me that he didn't have a great quality of life anymore, and although things worked out faster than maybe they would have otherwise had he not been unfortunate to have gotten COVID on top of everything else. Oh, that's better. But there's also a part of me that thinks that he was definitely ready to go. It was very emotional, the last moments that we all had with him. We thought that we would be able to get to the hospital. Dawn and Jess and I had been on the phone on conference calls, and we were kind of making plans for, hospice care and thinking that he might get better, and what were we going to do about the surgeries that he was going to have. And then all of a sudden it literally just turned to, within hours, we got phone calls saying, that this is it. And we all gathered, the boys came, we rushed to the hospital, and we were in the parking lot with my mom, and we got a text that Jay had already passed. And it felt devastating for all of us. And in the end, I love him dearly, but he could be such a pain sometimes too. And, but I tell you, my heart bled for him over the last 6 months. And I feel he's in a better place now, and that he was ready to go. So that's that. I met Jay the first time when, he came. He came to England. He came to England one time, first time, and I picked them up from the airport and whisked them in the back of my car. And I had a wedding meeting I had to go to in another village, and there was like no spare time for anything. And he was just. I found that he was such a gentleman. He could be so graceful in some of his behaviors. And particularly, when he first came into our lives, he never referred to me. I can't ever think of him referring to me as his stepdaughter. I feel like that once he got to know us, that he took myself, and certainly, he was around he met Owen when he was 2 years old and picked him up and basically raised him 100% as his flesh and blood grandchild. And I feel the same way about myself. I feel like he treated us all the same. Sometimes that was good, sometimes it wasn't so good, but I never felt like it was just, it was me. It was, if he was gonna be, feisty, then it was with all of us. And he never really singled anybody out like that. He was consistent. And anyway, we'll all miss him very much. Going through all the photographs, and I've got a thing in my mind that is just such happy feelings for him when I look at that. Particularly this photograph where he was listening to someone speak at their wedding in England, with my mom, and Judy was there, and Owen was there at 2 years old, and it was and Joe, and those were happy memories. So I'm gonna remember those things about him, and try and move on that way, and know that he's in a better place. I had a card that I wanted to read that I found. I found so many cards from everybody. And, all the boys, little tiny little handwritings and happy Father's Day cards, and obviously all of that was saved and appreciated. This is a card that he gave my mom, and it says, "I love you so much." And in here, he signed it, and then he circled the "so much love" at the bottom, which I thought was very sweet. I love you. You have so many things no one else will ever have. You have all my love now and forever. You have my admiration for being such an incredibly precious person. You have my unending gratitude for the way you brighten my life. You have my hopes, all gently hoping you know how glad I am that you warmed my world and touched my very soul. You have my every affection. You have my desires and dreams. You even have things there are no words for. You have whispered words that belong to you, thoughts you have inspired, and blessings you have touched the deepest part of my heart. You have the most beautiful wishes the stars and I can wish, and my prayer that someday I'll be able to thank you for all this. You have a standing invitation to share days with me and to be the one and only person who holds the key to my happiness. You have arms I want around me, eyes I want to lose myself in, and a joy in your voice that I could listen to forever. You have empty pages in the story of your life, pages I'd like us to write together. Filling them with memories we'll make and stories that will travel beside us and carry us over whatever comes along. You have my sweet appreciation for taking my smiles places that my heart has only dreamed of, and you'll always have me, my thank God for you, feelings, and so much love. And I know he felt that way about you. I heard him tell you so many times how much he loved you, and all of us. He never faltered in telling us. He was very open all the time. He could even be grumpy, and he would be like, "I love you." And he knew that he was speaking the truth. All right, I also have a poem. When I die, give what's left of me away to children, to old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me the most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when it's all that's left of me is love, give me away. I'll see you at home here.
Loving mother, fly across across these lonely years, and old home scenes of my childhood in fond memory appears. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnights, precious sacred scenes unfold. I remember Mother praying, Father too on bended knee. The sun is sinking, shadows falling, but their prayers to follow me. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnights, precious sacred scenes unfold, and precious memories fill my soul.
So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jay's daughter, Dawn. My dad was born in Barre, Vermont in 1939. He went to Spalding High School, graduated in 1957, then went on to Norwich University, which is a military university up in northern Vermont. When he graduated in 1962, he was commissioned into the U.S. Army. From there, he went to France, where he was a company commander for 3 years. And then they moved back to the United States because I had been born at that point in France. And they moved back to the United States because I needed a lot of surgeries. But then he ended up going to Vietnam for a year before he was honorably discharged from the service. At that point in time, he had earned the Bronze Star, the Merit Air Award, the Vietnam Service Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. So he really has served his country well, and that kind of set him up for his future. As a business person, he went into the paper business in Groveton, New Hampshire, and I'm nervous as shit, sorry.
I gave Dawn all
There's something wrong with Dawn, if you weren't, there'd be something wrong.
Yeah, so sorry. So he worked as a mill manager all of his life, and eventually was transferred out to the West Coast. They lived in Walnut Creek, California, and then Vancouver, Washington before he retired in 1997 and moved back to Myrtle Beach to be closer to us. In, I think it was 2002, he moved to Colorado to become a ski instructor, where he met Patsy. And has spent a wonderful last half of his life with you, traveling and becoming one big happy family and doing all those things that he loved, embracing his children, his grandchildren, and we are all his family, especially Carrie, who loves to put Dad in his place, and he was so easily intimidated by her.
He was charmed.
So, you know, we grew up skiing and water skiing. We had a summer house in Vermont, and so we would close up house in town on Memorial Day weekend and move out to the camp for the summers. We would water ski, we would canoe, we would kayak, we would sail, we would swim, we would almost drown while we're swimming. But we would have a lot of fun. And Dad was always a part of that, and all of his weekends were reserved for golf, which was his favorite passion. And so I think he has, I don't know, Jess, how many holes in one?
4.
4 holes in one. And so, yeah, and then the winters were reserved for snow skiing. So every weekend would find us up at a resort up in northern New Hampshire where we grew up skiing and working, where we have lots of family and friends. And so we always vacationed in South Carolina. And that put about 20 people down in South Carolina every year for a spring vacation to play golf every day. The women shopped and beached it and drank, and the kids drank. And the dads played golf and drank. So, but you know, he's not always been easy. Charming, not always easy. You know, so seeing him decline the way he did was really difficult. It was really painful because he went from being such a vibrant, out there human being, doing so many things, to whittling away to nothing. And you know, his attitude was he was, you know, with not much of a quality of life at that point. And you know, it breaks everybody's heart, but I know he was ready to go. I mean, I wish I'd been there. I was there through vicariously on the phone, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. You know, but he was ready to go, and you know, we have to let him go and know that he's in a better place. And so with that, thank you all for being here. We love and appreciate you, and I know he did too, even though he didn't act like it all the time. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to stay right here. You know, growing up in northern New Hampshire, you know, my father was the mill manager. Everybody knew him. So I got in trouble a lot because everybody knew him, everybody knew me. Small towns. But Dad was definitely the leader of the town. Everybody knew it. What Jay Elwood said was a law. If I got pulled over numerous times, he'd get me out of the speeding ticket, which was very nice. But he'd also take the car, and that was never fun. Because we lived 5 miles out of town, so there was me back on a bicycle. But he did instill a lot of different things. He was a very, very hard man. This softer, nicer Jay was really nice to get to know him as an adult. As a kid, he was very, very hard on me, and I certainly appreciated it. Maybe not so much. But he was incredibly mentally tough. And as he would say, he wasn't the smartest guy in the room, but he was always the sharpest guy. He was going to do his research, and he was going to understand what the problems were, and he was going to work through the problems. And he'd always surround himself with much smarter people, but he led those people with passion and courage. And that made him a great manager for his industry. He had a lot of people working with him. Some of his accomplishments, I don't know if you guys know any of his accomplishments. He was the youngest union negotiator at 27 years old. Negotiated contracts for the union and for the management. That was unheard of. He was usually, 40, 50-year-old men that have been doing it for a long time. He took over that at 27 years old. He was the team leader for what is now carbonless coated paper. They invented this paper. You guys all use this paper every day. If you write out a check, there's another receipt underneath. You guys don't know what carbon paper is. Carbon paper was a black piece of paper that you slid underneath something and you could make a copy. And that was the only way that we could do it back then. He invented, along with his team, 2 reactionary pieces. One was on the back side of the check, the other one was on the other sheet. Is when you press down, all these little millions of little droplets transferred over so you could have a carbon copy. One of the things that was really, really cool because it eliminated carbon paper. His golf, he was a fierce competitor. He was never out of a hole. He was always in the hole. He never allowed that to interfere with his friendships with the guys that he played with. But they would go out there and they would battle back and forth. And it was always fun to watch that growing up. He did teach me how to play golf, and eventually I understood where that came from, and I became a pretty good golfer for a while, and haven't picked up a club in a while. Mainly because I didn't get to play with my dad. He was definitely a stickler for rules, and he didn't like to bend them, but you always want to have fun. But you always played by the rules. There was a reason for it, and it was a discipline to him. Going back to his military days, making sure that everybody else played by the rules also. Didn't like somebody that was going to underhand him. And Dad did keep secrets, whether they were state secrets or not. One of the things that I found out later, he helped a lot of people without anybody knowing it. He would, whether it was just giving cash, helping them out in business, writing. One of his big things is he would write out business models and business outlines for people that were just starting out. And he would get them to a point where you have to follow this model and you will be successful. And he would do that free of charge and always on his time. And that made him, that was something that he really enjoyed doing, is helping out the community in that respect. But he never told anybody he was doing that. He never announced it, and the people, he asked them to keep it quiet. It was, when I found out all the people that he'd helped out, it was just absolutely amazing. And a lot of those businesses are still operating up in northern New Hampshire. So that was just a very, very humble thing to do. And that was kind of Dad. He'd keep that all secret. I do remember I got pulled over. I had a motorcycle, and I outran the cops a couple times because you could. There was only one police car in town, so it wasn't very hard to outrun the cops. The other people were walking. But I showed up in the driveway, and the chief of police was just leaving. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe they were having a meeting for something else, hoping. And Dad rolled the motorcycle out to the end, and he said, well, that was the last time you're riding that thing. And I said, oh, I guess we're selling it. He goes, no, we're giving it away. It was, there was definitely some trying times. He was a very busy man. He worked 7 to 7. That was a half a day to him. He was usually gone. He was up every morning at Triple Nichols, 5:55. And most of the time he would get me up at that point, and that's why I still do that every morning. And he was definitely driven. He was the guy that you knew was going to be successful because he ran the business successfully. He always looked out for the business. And if that hurt personal time with the family, that was okay to him. But he'd always try to make it up. There's a lot of vacations down in Myrtle Beach, and then we got to do some ski vacations. Those were really, really special times. Getting to ski with him. When he did move out to California, I was in college at this point, and we were having a discussion, and I didn't know that he was on the East Coast, and we were having a pretty heated discussion, and I hung up the phone pretty hard with a few words that I probably shouldn't have said. And I'm like, well, he's in California, I can get over this one, he can get over this one, it'll be a couple days. He knocked on my door about 45 minutes later to discuss what I had just said in person. And that was a very, very hard conversation to have. Thinking that I got away with something. And that was Dad. He was right there. And he instilled another thing, don't ever hang up the phone on him.
Oh.
And I never did after that. But
I must have missed that.
watching him in the later years and the friendship that we developed, when he was skiing, he would call me every morning. The 20-minute ride from Silverthorne to Breck. We would talk every morning. And I never had that closeness with my father until almost 30 years. I was 30 years old and we started talking every day. And it was basically the same conversation every day, but he was always bringing up something more for the conversation. And he was always pushing me for my business and making sure that I was doing the things correctly and following the model that he had written out for me. The business plan was to be followed. And for 15 years, I ran that business and we were fairly successful. Unfortunately, we had a downturn in the economy and that kind of wiped us out. I think that's about all I have to say about that. Paige?
Can I interject?
Sure.
I think you missed something about the rules. You did have 3 speeding tickets in 1 hour and a half trip from northern New Hampshire over to his mother's house in Mary.
I think that's when he was having fun.
That was with alarming regularity. I think that's where you and I learned it, because I got a ticket this morning at 4 o'clock in the damn morning. Leaving Myrtle Beach this morning.
71, but the police officer was really nice. And he goes, I'm going to knock it down to 64.
Jesus Christ, I'm going to my dad's funeral. Give me a break.
He did give me a break.
We go by and just like, oh,
So I immediately took over Road Resume.
So
You can't get stopped twice.
I've told Dylan to play a song, and we're gonna do an appropriate song. But I did, when I texted, I was asking Dawn and Jess about music, and I was looking and making a little playlist for when Dylan's not playing and we're all eating, and I was like, oh, Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. I was like, oh yes, that's so appropriate. But we're not gonna play that now. We're gonna stick with something more traditional and have one more song and then let Boyd.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. 'Twas grace hath brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've knownless days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
Don't think of him as gone away, his journey just begun. Life holds so many facets, the earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrows and the tears, where there was no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that he could know today, how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched, from nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much.
Someone else go first, by chance?
Yeah, I can go. My grandpa was a great man. He taught me a lot about life every time I would go and visit him. He taught me basically how to play golf at a young age, and that helped out a lot with whenever I would play golf with anybody else. I just remember all the memories that we had together, and sorry, I'm not good with audiences. I just look back on all the memories, good times we had together, and his later years were really hard whenever, of course, his health started to decline. And to see him decline was really hard on me, because me growing up, I knew him as this vibrant man that always got out and never said no to anything. And I like to look back at the good times that when he was happy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ethan?
My grandfather, he was a very, very great man. He brought me to the point of where I am today and taught me a lot of great things that I should know in life. No matter how bad his health got, he always wanted to see everyone have fun. He always wanted to see everyone be happy. I've looked at it as, yes, it's a sad thing that he has passed, but he is in a better place now to where we know that he's in a better place, and that's all I gotta say.
Okay.
Grampy was a great person. Every time we got to his house, he would take us out to go to the driving range and go play golf. He taught me how to golf and Ash whenever he was born. Whenever we got there, most mornings he would wake up and be gone. He would wake up early and go play golf with his friends. And he would come back and take us to the driving range right after that, so it was like a long day. Then he would always make time for us whenever. He taught me how to swim by just throwing me in a pool.
Oh, yes.
I forgot about that. I have that picture and I didn't come across it in this group.
Sink or swim?
He did.
Both?
Just Owen, Asher wasn't born.
We had a rough time when the painters were painting the house, and me and Asher set up a little trip thing, and the painter slipped and dropped all the paint all over the driveway.
It wasn't really a trip there, it was a huge hole in the ground filled with mud water.
That's great, guys.
Yeah, that wasn't a good one. Every other time was great. Grampy was a great person. He's in a better place now. I'm glad we don't have to see him suffering, and he would love that everybody came out today to support him.
How
Thank
many
you,
times
guys.
did you go over there and take him to?
Smoke a cigar.
Took him out to smoke cigars all the time, every day after school.
Every day at like 4 o'clock.
Yep. Every day. So we got some great memories with him. Thank you guys.
Owen, thank you for being there for us.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for helping him transition
Thank you guys.
and letting us be a part of it.
And Asher,
Appreciate it.
he
Asher?
really held the fort there for everybody.
Yep. Being right there, being a part of it, letting us participate through you meant everything. Thank you. We couldn't be
I
there.
could probably say more, but I'm getting kind of nervous, so. Sticking up.
Public speaking is not easy.
No.
Paige, since a couple of you called me out, you mind if I say a few words?
Yo, please, please.
I was
Yes,
called out
Carrie,
on
I
Carter.
know you've got words.
I met Jay in 1988. I was roommates with Dawn. She took me back to New Hampshire. I learned a couple of things. One of them was not so good. We were sitting out on a back porch. It was beautiful. And underneath the table were all these beautiful wooden ducks. So I'm from the city girl. And I just thought they were gorgeous artwork. And I complimented him on the ducks. And then he told me what the ducks do. They lure other ducks so that you can kill them. That's when we learned that Carrie was a liberal. We still had dinner that night, which was great.
Duck?
I just mind killing them. But no, as a matter of fact, that night we were having steak. So before dinner happened, we went out. It was a beautiful property in New Hampshire. It was just gorgeous. On the right side of the tracks, up on this mountain where you can see forever. And they had a bit of property where you could hit golf balls, which for them was a 5-iron. For me, it was a 5-wood. So I got to swing out. So we got to hit some balls together. That was great. And Jay asked me how I like my steak. And I looked at him and I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "What would you call a well-done steak?" And I looked at him and I said, "Garbage." And he said, "She can stay." So at that point, I was on his good side until we had another political conversation and we went at it. And I wouldn't really say I was a mediator with Jay. I was more of an adversary.
Or more of an
Hey, I
instigator.
had things sitting there listening, just listening. I couldn't even get a word in. Not that I wanted to.
Which would be a good thing,
I know.
because this is me talking now. And you're talking. Which is like quite good enough for it. But Jay and I would go at it. And after the first night we went at it, he gave me a backhanded compliment, and because I'm also prior service. And he said that night, "Well, you're certainly a formidable opponent, and you cuss better than any of the officers I served." So from that point, he embraced me as a part of his family. We could fight, but then you had dinner, and there was peace. And that is missing right now in this country, is exactly what we had. We could be adversaries in a conversation, totally not agree with each other. He goes into his condescending, misogynistic, at which point I would say, "Jay, you don't need me for this part of the conversation. Since you're telling me what I think, I can go now." And then have laughs and break bread together. And I miss that. The other story I'd like to tell is the first time that I went to their house in Lake Mary, because I wound up living in Florida, not far from them. And that's one of the reasons why Dawn and I have been able to stay close through the years, is because I could visit her when she was visiting them. So the first time I'm going over to visit, I ride my motorcycle from Ormond Beach to Lake Mary, and I had my puppy with me, my Chihuahua. Of course, as soon as you open the door, it's beautiful. All these nice carpets, and I have a puppy. And what do we know about puppies? They're not potty trained yet. Exactly. So I'm guarding this leash with my life. I didn't get to meet Patsy that night. She had been recovering from a surgery, and Jay was guarding her peace in that room. You know, don't make any noise, don't make any of this. So he takes my puppy, and the first thing he does is take the leash off and lets her go run around. And I was like, oh my goodness. don't worry about it. Well, my puppy could do anything and it wouldn't have upset him, but not so much the people. So that's when I learned he's an animal lover, and he embraced my puppy as if it were his dog. So after that, I had to bring her on most visits also. And I so appreciated our time out on the back porch after the meals. He would smoke a cigar. Dawn and I would go through like 2 packs of cigarettes. We would go through a couple of bottles of wine, and I would have 1 glass. Or Bob would go through the rest of it. Wine and Jay. And one of the things that I thought was so cute is as we would go at it with our opinions of politically what's going on, Patsy would be in my amen corner. She would be, that's right. So even though it was 2 against 1, unless Jess was there, and then it was like 5 against me, he would still appreciate that and not get upset for the argument. He was up for the fight. And one of the unfortunate sad things was, because I used to kind of be their eyes for when Jay would go to the hospital. They would ask me to go take a look. Her just asked me to go take a look. I'd go visit him in the hospital. He'd be like, am I in trouble? No, I'm just going to talk. But in the end, one of the last times that I visited with him, I was kind of sad because I didn't have it in me to argue with him, because he didn't have it in him to argue back. And that's so kind of when I knew we were on the downside. But I just wanted to share, as someone who's not his blood or his partner for life, that he could still make you feel like family, and that you felt that he was going to be on your side even if he disagreed with you.
Yep.
And that was a great thing, and from a great man. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys having me here and allowing me to speak to his nature. So thank you.
Thank you. I think we're all hungry, right?
Can I say something?
Indeed.
Yes.
You mind first things? I'll stand up so I'm going to look at Patsy. But I'm obviously a son-in-law. He was a good man, Jay. It was an honour to be at his wedding, and this is a celebration, you know. And these people here I haven't seen for ages, and obviously Patsy and Judy and everyone, and obviously Jess and Dawn. Couple of things. When Jay got married, you probably don't know this, but we got married the day before. We went to a little pub in Plush. I didn't even know the pub existed in my village for about a year, because it's down a dirt track, and it's like
It was
Lord of the Rings. You disappear into this little valley, you get to this thatched pub, it's called the Brace of Pheasants. You go in there and you open the door and everyone stares at you. Hi, we're the outsiders. Anyway, we went in there and it was this stag night. And there's a massive chimney that you could sit in. There was a table there, and that was the special table. And we went in there and we had wine and steak, and we sat there with my dad and another guy, I can't remember, my mate or someone. But there was 4 or 5 of us, and he toasted you. He raised his glass and Elvis Jess was it, which I thought was very cool, and I always remember that. And the other thing, I always remember your dad calling you. He'd sit in his office, in his chair, he'd have his little shot, bourbon or wine or whatever, and he would always chat. And that really instilled in me what I should do with my father. We're really close, but you don't talk as much as you should. And that really instilled to me that we should always talk. And I talk to my father and my mum nearly every day. They called me at 4 o'clock this morning. I didn't know how to use Facebook, and it went off. But it really is so special that after 30 years he talked to you every day. And you take it for granted, don't you? Because once you're gone, you're gone. So it is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of golf, of skiing, of red wine, of his bloody spaghetti sap sauce that he used to love to stir.
And give away
to everyone. But that is the zest of life that he had. And as Jess said earlier, it's interesting to hear the difference in your side of life, from child to Colorado, and then from Colorado, when we were lucky enough to have him in our life, onwards.
Yeah.
And I always remember the day he came out of the ski instructor's locker, and I was a ski bum in Colorado, whatever, I don't know what we'd been over there on holiday, and I was waiting to go skiing with him. And he came over and he's majestic and he's bronzed and he's good looking and he's got his red and silver jacket on, his skis over his head. I'm a ski instructor. And he put them down, plop, plop, he clicked in and he said, "What are you waiting for?" And he went. And I'm like trying to put the skis on and I'm all over the place. And we ski around the mountain and he skis hard. And you're chasing him and you get to the side of a mountain and he's waiting, looking at you going, "Yeah, I'm 65 and you're 30 or whatever." And then he goes again and he had that drive. It doesn't matter what age he was at, he had drive, didn't he? Mm-hmm. And he had a love of life, and I think that's so important. And a love of life for friends, a deep love of life for family. So loyal to his family, to his grandkids, you know, to Dawn and Jess. Really, really, really talked about you all the time. And I really appreciate him. I appreciate I didn't have a father here. My father was in England, and it was nice that I was inducted and brought into a family with Patsy and Jay and everyone else, and I really, really appreciate that. And he loved my kids. They drove him crazy sometimes, like grandkids do. But yeah, a glass of red wine someday and think about his great memories, because I think he was an awesome person and a good friend to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, anybody else?
I have something to say.
Yes.
Patsy and I have known each other for what, 55 years? And we've gone through a lot together. And Joe and I moved part-time to Colorado, 3 months in the summer for golf, 3 months in the winter for skiing. And Patsy, single at the time, comes to Colorado and decides to move there. So we welcome her, and she moves in with the gal that makes the bagels down the street, Cheryl. Cheryl. And then we go out dancing one night, and I am teaching her, or trying to teach her, how to do the two-step.
Difficult.
Joe knows how to do that. He was Texan. And anyway, Jay comes over to me and said, "May I take over?"
I like this, please.
And I said, "Well, yes, you may." And that's the beginning of their relationship.
Right.
And he moved to Colorado. She moved full-time to Colorado.
I did.
And then they got married. And in England. And we were there. And he was amazing. He was a wonderful man. He was loving, caring, happy. We had many nighttime stories to tell. Gary knows some of them, Paige does too. But we had a great time with the two of them, and it was very, very special. And he will be missed.
Indeed.
But he's with Joe,
Indeed.
and he's in a better place.
Indeed.
So thank you.
Cheers to Joe and Jay. Cheers.
Can I say something?
Yes, Dave.
Well, Patsy will remember this story, I hope. We went on vacation together quite often in Sonoma Valley. And one year we found a place in Barbados. And Wendy's cousin, one of her 43 cousins, had a house there, and she leased out a big portion of the house. And so we got a pretty good deal, and so we meet at the airport in Miami, and Jay's there, and all of a sudden he says, "My passport is expired." By 1 day. So I said, "Jay, we're going." I said, "You can meet us if you like, but we're going." So Patsy said, "Yes, I'm going." So that's the only Patsy can say. But anyway, so we got over there and we rented a car again from some friends, Wendy's, from Trinidad or whatever. And so nice little long car, and they just opened up the door and just got married. And so I about wrecked the car. I mean, the wrong side of the road, potholes everywhere, big drums everywhere, no street lights. I mean, I actually was destroying this car. And so Jay shows up. Jay walked his passport through the federal courthouse in Miami, and he joined us. So when he got there, I just took the keys and I said, "You are now in charge of what's left of the car." And so he took over. And he immediately backed it right into a don't. And so there we were. But we had a great time, and we had a lot of trips with them that I just will never forget for the rest of my life. But thank God Wendy knew this young couple, and they knew somebody in a body shop in Barbados, and everything got taken care of. So the story ended very, very well. But I mean, I couldn't believe what Jay went through to get to us. It was amazing. So we had a lot of stories like that, and Cassie can tell you a lot of really nice trips. But at least I didn't tow that car.
He finished it off.
Jay helped me.
He finished it off.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us